for me.
Hi, I'm Joan Chack.
All right, and action.
I was an elementary school principal, and as such, I'll tell you, I know we all say we can write books, and when I retired 4 years ago, I think I could have gone on some TV shows or whatever with some of these stories. And they're not about reading, they're not about math, they're just about so many funny things that happen. Our school started in the morning at 9 o'clock, and I was working in my office. It's around 9:45, and my secretary calls on the phone and says, "Mrs. Jack, can you come out here? Mrs. Asta wants to see you." So I go out, and there's Mrs. Asta with her two little children, first and third grade, and she said, "Mrs. Jack, my children are late today." And I said, "Not a problem, just, sign them in late with Mrs. Manns." And Mrs. Manns is like looking at me, and not sure why. And I said, "Go ahead, just sign in." And I noticed she's like looking down. She's looking down, so I'm following her eyes down to Mrs. Asta, whose hands are held open, and I look down, and there's a dead hamster in the hands. So I'm going, okay, and Mrs. Asta said, "Well, Sparky died last night." And I said, "Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that." I said, "Just get the kids signed in and we'll send them to class." So she says, "Okay." Signs the kids, we send the kids to class. Mrs. Asta leaves with the hamster in rigor mortis. So I go back to my office, scratching my head and working for a little bit. Half hour goes by and Mrs. Manns calls again, "Mrs. Jack, can you come out?" There's Mrs. Asta again, still comes back, holding the now more rigor mortis hamster in his hand. And she said, "Mrs. Jack, I just don't feel like I've had closure. I think I need to get the kids out. I think we need to go home, and I think we need to talk more about Sparky." So I'm like, okay, what do I do? Call Children in Youth? I have no idea. So I said, "Mrs. Asta, can I have Sparky?" And so she lovingly gives Sparky to me, and I said, "Sit down." And I said, "Mrs. Manns, please call the children out of class, bring them down." So I run over to the nurse's office, and I said, "Colleen, can you give me a box? Do you have a little box or something?" So she gets like a Band-Aid box, and I tell her what it's for, and we're lining the box with Kleenex and whatever, and making a nice little casket, and we put Sparky in it. And I said, "Can you come over? I need you." So the nice nurse comes over with me. I get Mrs. Asta. We have the two nice little kids. I take them in my office, sit everybody around in a nice little circle. They sit down. I have Sparky in the beautiful lined casket. And I said, "We're all here to talk about Sparky." I said, "I'm sure Sparky was a good hamster. Why don't we go around and all say something nice that we remember about Sparky, how Sparky made us happy." One by one, we all went around and said kind things about Sparky. With that, we wrapped them up really nicely, handed them back to Mrs. Asta, had a few parting words. Kids go back to class, Mrs. Asta goes home, and that's the day of an elementary school principal.